bit greedy on his part, wanting all the money, and if I didn't come down 5%, the public that are entitled to a fight like this would have been deprived of it, so I came down 5% so that the people could see the fight.
Carmen was 5'6" and Robinson was 6 foot, which meant that Carmen had to punch up. And as you punch up, you lose power. So he had some real physical disadvantages going into that fight.
I had to put the pressure on him to keep him moving backwards, to keep him away from his punching power. So I had to move in all the time, punch to the body and come up to the head. I walked back to my corner at the end of the 15th round, and I says, I won this fight.
The winner and new middleweight champion of the world, Carmen Basilio.
I got goose pimples all over me, and I got called. I almost started to cry because I remember when I was in 4th grade, the teacher asked all of us children what they wanted to be when they grew up. And when they got to me, I said, I'm going to be a professional fighter and I'm going to be champion of the world. And she said, that's the most disgusting thing I ever heard. And I was embarrassed to no end about it, but I never forgot it.
Basilio's victory against Sugar Ray Robinson lifted him into greatness. His title-winning fight at Yankee Stadium had brought in close to $1 million, and the rematch in Chicago promised even more thrills.
Carmen, and all the excitement after the weigh-in, just one question. I've polled 10 sports writers from around the nation here. 9 of them picked Sugar Ray to win by a knockout tonight. What's your answer to that?
9 of them are wrong.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
I was teaching him how to block a right uppercut and counter with a left hook. He slipped. He made a mistake.
He hit me with a right uppercut right here in the eyebrow. It broke the blood vessels open and my eye blew up instantly.
I said, he got a bump like the size of an egg. And I could see Carmen's eye closing.
I couldn't see to my left. I had to work hard to change my stance a little bit.
Carmen kept going, don't stop this fight. Don't stop the fight.
By now, 12 rounds have rolled past in this tremendous title match. Basilio hasn't been able to see out of that left eye of his since the 6th round. Sugar Ray is really looking for a chance to finish him off.
Sports Illustrated said that not 1 in 100 million men could have done what Basilio did that night.
The winner and the new world's middleweight champion, Sugar Ray Robinson.
The public wanted a third fight, and so did Frankie Carbo. But Carbo had gone into hiding in Miami after being indicted for illegal matchmaking. Even so, he sent for Basilio to talk about making Robinson 3.
He never told me what to do. Never gave me any orders. I wouldn't take them anyway, because I didn't believe in that stuff.
Basilio set the terms, and by God, he didn't fight Robinson unless those terms were met.
He wasn't satisfied with $350,000. He said because the other guy was getting $700, which in a way he was right.
The fight never come off, and it was at the time the hottest fight in boxing.
In 1959, Jim Norris's boxing empire lost its final appeal to stay in business. That year, the United States Supreme Court upheld a lower court's decision and ordered the dissolution of all IBC companies.
Wirtz and Norris' control over the Garden had to be broken up. They had to sell their shares in the Garden. Wirtz and Norris cried all the way to the bank because they got a tremendous return on their Garden shares.
3 months after the Supreme Court's ruling, the hunt for Frankie Carbo ended dramatically when police captured him in New Jersey.
They surrounded the place with guns drawn. Well, it turned out that Carbo had jumped out the back window, and he was immediately nailed there by the detectives from the DA's office.
Frank, the night you were arrested, you were going out the back door. You said you thought the Mafia was trying to rub you out. Why would they want to do that?
It turned out that Carbo thought it was a rub-out rather than a police action. So he was one frightened person.
He pled guilty. The most he could have gotten was, I think, 3 to 5 years, and he wound up getting 2 years.
Frankie Carbo was sent to Rikers Island Prison, where Gabe Genovese was also doing time for unlicensed managing. The mob's grip on boxing was coming loose. John DeJohn and Joe Nitro admitted to boxing officials they had made secret payments to Genovese and lost their licenses to manage in New York State. It would take almost 4 years before DeJohn was reinstated.
I got a bad break because that boxing commission ruined me, the New York Boxing Commission, when they banned me like that. They made me think I was the biggest criminal around. People, him, that's why I say I was a mafia man. I was never a mafia man. The evil was already there. I didn't create that evil. They had to have a scapegoat, so they grabbed me. Why? Because Basilio was the hottest thing at that time. It made news.
I think probably Nitro and DeJohn tried to do their best by Basilio. They did what they had to do to get him in the ring for a championship fight.
Basilio testified before the commission and told of his meeting with Carbo in Miami. Cleared of any wrongdoing, Basilio stood by his managers. We were together, Joe, John, and myself, for 8 years, and I can only say that I would never want anyone else to handle my affairs.
The thousands and thousands of pages of testimony and evidence on this table all point towards one inescapable conclusion, and that is that during the period from 1947 through 1960, racketeers and underworld figures dominated and controlled the so-called sport of professional boxing.
In the summer of 1960, Congress held hearings on criminal activity in the fight game. Tennessee Senator Estes Kefauver, who chaired the hearings, relied on John Bonamy to lay out the case for boxing reform.
LaMotta was the lead-off witness before the Kefauver committee. I asked him whether he had taken a dive in his fight with Billy Fox in 1947.
But you don't forget whether or not you faked the knockout, do you?
No, sir.
And that's the truth. You faked the knockout, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
I received an offer of $100,000 to lose to Billy Fox, which I refused. I said I was only interested in the championship fight.
Did your brother, Joseph LaMotta, state to you the persons who were offering the $100,000 bribe?
He did not.
He had said in preliminary testimony that the bribe offer came from Blinky Palermo, who was a leading manager at the time.
Several former boxers told of the need to clean up the very sport Mary Basilio had called the dirty, rotten game. Her son Carmen was among them.
They just don't have any respect for those fellas, and they don't belong in boxing, and the quicker we get those fellas out, the better it's going to be for the sport.
Here he was, from a small town, a rural guy, and to speak up and to speak out, I think took a lot of courage.
Well, they told me, my manager, he says, tell the truth. And I said, I intend to. If you don't, it'll come back to you.
Have you ever threatened any manager or boxer or promoter at any time within the last 10 years for not carrying out any wishes? Your wishes? I respectfully decline to answer the question on the ground that I cannot be compelled to be a witness against myself.
Carbo refused to tell the committee about his role as the underworld boss of boxing. Instead, he took the fifth 30 times.
There's only one thing I want to say, Mr. Senator. I congratulate you on your re-election.
The Kefauver hearing spawned a bill calling for federal control over boxing. The measure died in Congress when it received little support from Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Resisting the need for a national crime commission, Kennedy was less interested in policing the fight game than he was in convicting the racketeers associated with it.
Basilio almost went down. Basilio's hurt. The round is almost over. The round is over.
The last couple of fights that I had, I would take my shower, get dressed, walk out of the gym, not talk to anybody. I was 34 years old, and I'm driving in my car, and I'm all by myself, and I'm thinking about this. And I said, Carmen, it's time to retire.
In 1961, Carmen Basilio fought his last fight. a valiant but losing bid for Paul Pender's middleweight title. By this time, the legal troubles of Frankie Carbo had escalated when he and 4 other defendants, Blinky Palermo, Truman Gibson, Louis Dragna, and Joseph Seeker, were tried in Los Angeles on charges of extortion and conspiracy.
There was bail set for Carbo on our charge of $100,000, which in those days was a very big bail. To give you an idea how big it was, I started working as a federal prosecutor for $4,250 a year.
The government's key witness was West Coast matchmaker Jackie Leonard. Leonard had promoted the welterweight title fight between Virgil Akins and Don Jordan, and then refused to give up a piece of Jordan. When the mob came to collect, Leonard was attached to a pair of FBI wiretaps.
Carbo called Leonard cross country and told him he was going to come out there to the West Coast and gouge out his eyes.
The mob flourished under J. Edgar Hoover until Bobby Kennedy came.